Guys and girls, excited because I know that what's coming is better than what we've had and what has gone, right? That's the approach. And I want everyone to know that my advice to you is get ready for the comeback. And what I mean by that is that we know from overseas that normality has gone back in most places. And very soon, as Manos Fendakakis says, we're going to have a situation very much like the Roaring '20s after the Spanish flu in 1919, which is the closest we've got to compare the current pandemic. Things went crazy. This incredible energy went from the community and they got excited and they got really happy. And why did they get happy? Because they'd been locked away and all of a sudden they got this thing called COVID clarity. And it gave people a far more ambitious view of life. Hello, Peter Horizakis. Good to see you, my friend. I spend a lot of time with Peter at the moment. Guys and girls, good to see you. Michelle, Maddie Steinwade, my friend, good to see everyone that's coming on here. So guys and girls, firstly, I want to let people know you shouldn't be spending this time feeling sorry for yourself, feeling like a victim, because I want to start off and remind you, just being born was an incredible privilege, because the chances of being born is 1 in 400 trillion. We must not forget that. We've already won the lottery big time. That's the first thing. The second thing I want to let everyone know is that the smart girls and guys, what are they doing right now? They're thinking, when this is all over, and we don't know exactly the date, but when this is all over, there's going to be this incredible opportunity. And what you want to do is get yourself to be business fit during this period. You don't want to come out of the lockdown sort of trying to find your way. You want to come out of the lockdown with a launch list of people that you're going to be working with if you're currently got restrictions, right? You want to come out of the lockdown not having your trousers, feeling tight on your stomach and feeling tired like you've had a Christmas break. You want to come out of the lockdown, have been talking to your people in your pipeline. You want to come out of the lockdown with clarity as to what your plan is for the next 12 months. Wherever you've been settled in life, wherever you sort of become too comfortable, you want to actually go off and set yourself new goals and targets and make things that you really, really, really want as the things you want to achieve in the next 12 months. So that's the first thing. The second thing I want to let people know is that I totally empathise with our brothers and sisters in Melbourne, particularly Melbourne. 209 days in a hard lockdown, 209 days where they weren't showing buyers a property because they're not allowed to show a single buyer a property, where they're not able to go in and do a listing presentation physically. And yes, there's a few of our real estate agents that have done incredible things using Zoom and using FaceTime and sort of got a few sales there and got a little bit of momentum happening with their old pipeline. I get that. And I applaud those people. But for the majority of the real estate agents, of course, in Melbourne, they've had to learn how to manage free time. And what they've had to do is immerse themselves in things like homeschooling and, reconnecting with their family. Because many of the girls and guys that really crush it in real estate, working 60, 70, 80 hours a week, don't have that big of an opportunity to sort of really get to understand their family and get close to them. So that's what a lot of them are doing, and I applaud you for that, because as Rupert Murdoch says, never waste a crisis. Many of the other real estate agents, of course, what they're doing is they're cleaning their database, they're cleaning their pipeline, they're turning their database from a fat database to a fit database. There are other real estate agents, of course, who have decided that they're going to actually go into self-improvement mode, and they've enrolled in courses through Udemy, doing stuff in the real estate gym, sort of going onto YouTube, reading books, and they've used this opportunity to actually get themselves to be better. But the most important thing I want you to know, that this 4 or 8 weeks is going to end very, very soon. And when it ends, we're going to be in a game, a reset game. And it doesn't matter where you came from, how big or strong you were, and it doesn't matter how experienced you were. It's going to be like there's been an aeroplane that had people sitting in first class, business class, and economy class. And that this plane had landed at an airport, let's call it Dubai, and people got out of the plane and then got into the bus that takes them from the plane to the terminal. And when they got into the bus, they all sat together. And some of the people that were sitting in first class said, but hang on a second, we flew first class. Why do we actually sit with everyone here? And the flight attendant that was on the bus with them said, it's because it's 000. You're all the same. We start again. And that's why I'm saying this is an opportunity, guys and girls. But I say that with being totally empathetic on how difficult it is. Right now in New Zealand, for instance, you can't even go get yourself a cup of coffee from a cafe as a takeaway. You'll go to a service station. And of course, my friends, the other thing I want to touch on is that, as I said earlier on in my heads up to this video, that, you know, I got fully vaccinated about 3 months ago. It was my choice to do that. And I have my reasons, and I also respect the reasons why people choose not to get vaccinated, right? I understand that, and I respect it. I have people that are very close to me that have made the decision that they think it's too risky to take a chemical that can alter their biochemistry, and may have not gone through the normal stringent channels that you do when a drug comes onto the marketplace, and I respect that. I think one of the things that we're going to be challenged with, and one of the questions that came, in fact, if you just bear with me while I open up this second phone and have a look at it, one of the questions was, can I force my staff to be vaccinated to ensure we don't spread COVID to the clients? And also, I don't want to be in a position where our competitors have an advantage. Okay, so let's talk about that one for a moment. So we do have a couple of test cases. SPC and Qantas, of course, have gone out, and it's in the public arena. They've basically said, we have an expectation that our staff will be vaccinated, right? Now, what's really interesting is this. The federal government to date has not had any public health orders themselves. So the federal government hasn't been in a position to say, you know what, as a real estate industry, we expect you to be vaccinated, right? This is going to end up happening to the states. And I believe, and I spoke to someone who I'm going to have on my rant, I think next Sunday, extremely qualified, well-credentialed person in the media, in law, who has followed the Qantas and the SPC case very, very carefully. And that's still up in the air because there is no law that says a company can actually force their staff to get vaccinated. Of course, this is going to create a big challenge to a lot of the real estate principals, because principals, on the one hand, understand that, hey, they'd love to be able to say to their vendors, to their tenants, to their landlords, to their buyers, that, hey, when our staff meet you, they're fully vaccinated and they're also being COVID tested on a frequent basis. They're not going to be in a position to do that. So as Deborah says, there is no precedent. But this is something as an industry we're going to have to grapple with, right? Because we've got to be mindful that there will be our consumers, our customers, call them what you like. What I'm talking about is the tenants and the landlords and the buyers and the sellers that we deal with. We're going to have to, turn around and make a decision and say, hey, we either don't care, we leave it to our staff to decide, or as a business, we're going to put a message out there, hey, I want to let you know we're open for business and we want to put you at ease. We want to put you at ease that our staff are fully vaccinated. So the chances of us spreading COVID to you, whilst it's possible, it's greatly reduced, right? So gang, this one here is a really, really, really tough issue. And at this point, I'm going to have a sip of my glass of red wine, because I do believe, my friends, that in the time that we're in, if you're working at the moment from home, I'm letting you know, one of the secrets is have a circuit breaker at the end of your day. You've got to be able to draw a line and say, as of this point, I stop working, right? And for me, it's the glass of red wine. And there's not too many glasses, but the first glass basically says, hey, I'm stopping work. I'm not working from here onwards. It's now personal time. And this is something that people have got to get used to doing when they're working from home. So let's move on. I'm not going to spend much more time on that question about forcing, because there is no precedent, but I am going to get one of the legal experts that's going to be on most likely next Sunday to talk and analyze the pros and cons and the way this thing is going to pan out, right? Pan out. Mark Sully, good to see you. And well done, Mark Sully. You've been working very hard. And I've got to say to you, I'm going to say it. This is a big, big, big well done to the people of Greenacre, to the people of Canterbury Bankstown, to the people of Dubbo, to the people out there in Southwest and the western suburbs. Do you understand the restrictions that these people have had? They've got military, they've got army in their suburbs, right? So I've got to say to you, and you know what? For me, don't get me wrong, I don't love the lockdown, but guess what? You know, I've learned to make the best of the cards I've been dealt. But my situation is quite different to the family that's living in a 2-bedroom unit in Punchbowl, right? In Punchbowl, in full lockdown, a family that might have 3 kids doing homeschooling, a family that has no balcony. You can imagine what the feeling and the emotions are in that place. You can understand now why, my friends, we are seeing self-harm go at incredible high levels from youth. And I just want things, listen, I just want things to be seen in the proper perspective. And the proper perspective, my friends, are, as I said to you in the video prior to this, there are under 1,000 deaths of COVID-19 in Australia. Yet there have been 50,000 deaths of cancer. And those 50,000 deaths in the 12-month period includes 2-year-olds, 3-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 10-year-olds, 40-year-olds, 41-year-olds, like my brother, right? So that's 50,000. This is a fact. You Google it. This is not an opinion. And then in addition to that, we've had 150,000 cancer diagnoses in a 12-month period. Now, this is not a one-off. This is just happening in each year. So there's a lot more to the picture, and I'm really, really pleased that the narrative and the dialogue, particularly from Gladys Berejiklian, who, by the way, is a significantly better premier than Daniel Andrews. Daniel Andrews worries me. He really does worry me. He worries me. I'm so worried that things are going to be moving everywhere else in Australia, but he's going to be obsessed with the way that he goes about things, and he's going to think to himself, we're going to get it back to zero in Victoria. And that worries me. And it worries me a lot. It worries me a lot, by the way, that a real estate agent in Victoria, specifically Melbourne, cannot have a buyer walk into a property on their own that is vacant with the doors open by themselves to look at it. I find that, alarming, because the consequences of not doing it is that there are a lot of people that have to move for lots of reasons. Some of them are financial. Some of them are that look, the list goes on, but it is just, he worries me. But what I do like is that we're now moving towards, in New South Wales, not just looking at infections, but looking at number of deaths. And what is very, very, very clear is this. As Malcolm Quinn says, I think that he's very power hungry. I think that's what Daniel Andrews is, right? Look, anyway, I shouldn't put too much energy in him. So let's go through some more of the questions. Let's go through some more of these questions that have come through. Okay, so the next question is, why do some people in real estate buy fake followers on their Instagram account? What are the pros and cons? Okay, so let's talk about that for a moment. Well, firstly, I would suggest that if you are doing that right now, you should stop. Get rid of the fake followers, because people know. They can see. If you've got 100, 200,000 followers and there's only a handful of people that make a comment, that actually engage in your content, you're standing out a mile away. And what you're sort of sending a message out to people is, I'm desperate that I want to create an impression that people actually follow me, right? And that is not a good look, because no one likes a desperate, needy person. That's one thing. So it's really obvious who it is, because you can just go and look at the girl or guy and say, wow, 80,000 followers, right? And then you have a look and you see there's just very little engagement, right? And generally speaking, if you're at that level and you've got high engagement, you're going to get verified by Facebook, which owns Instagram, and you should have the blue tick there, and people will know that it's legit. So I wouldn't do it. But probably the main reason I wouldn't do it is that it really screws you up in the algorithm, because every time you post content, what happens is the platform doesn't actually show it to a lot of people, because it knows that based on the number of followers that you've got, that there's no engagement. So they believe it's spam. So I just wouldn't do it. I would be far better looking at what impact do you make. Share, like, comments. Remember that. SLC. Share, like, comments is what you want, right? Let's move on to the next question, my friends. Sorry, gang, I've got to open up this phone that's got these questions. What do you say to a vendor who won't put their home on the market right now because they won't be able to find anything to buy, even though they know that they're going to get top dollar for their home? Good question. Good question. So that's a good question. So right now, I believe, and I'm telling every friend, every family, every relative, anyone that wants to listen to me, if you're thinking of selling, don't do it later, do it now. There's just not enough stock out there, and the absorption curve is highly favoring the seller, which basically means, as Mark says, we had that yesterday, basically means that you will get more money for your home now. We might have a lockdown, but the buyers aren't locked down. They're lining up. I've got real estate agents that are telling me right now that all they're doing is doing 50, 60 personal one-on-one inspections on a single property for 2-3 hours on a Saturday, right? So guys and girls, I would suggest that if you've got anyone at the moment that is thinking of selling, bring them on now. Now, if they turn around and say to you, but listen, we don't want to sell, because if we sell, we will get top dollar. We get it. The prices are incredible. But what are we going to buy? Look, it's not an easy one. I would suggest that one thing that you can sort of explain to them is that smart people, what they do is they organize a contract that suits their life. So you could turn around and say, hey, let's put your property on the market, and then what we're going to do is actually put in a long settlement. Let's put in a 4-month settlement. And that's going to mean that you're going to end up having a lot of time to find a property. And we know that the way things are going with the vaccination rates, that we're most likely going to have an influx of property on the market in October and November, and that's more than cover you. So, increasing your settlement for your vendors to a longer term. The other thing is, if you can feel that there's tension there, and if you actually sort of push too hard, you're going to lose a bit of credibility with the client, I suggest that you don't push, because that becomes commission breath. That basically says, I'm neglecting how you're feeling and I'm just going to keep pushing my opinion. No, what you do with these people is you say, listen, I get it. Why don't we do this? Why don't we prepare now and launch later? Let me say that again. Let's prepare now and launch later. Let's get the paperwork process. Let's lock in a photographer, videographer. Let's give you the best time on the Saturday as your open home time. Let's get everything up and ready. And when we get the green light, what we're going to do is we're going to have your property on the market first. With those great words I use, you're going to be on the market in isolation, not in competition. That's what I would be saying. How are you, Michelle? So guys and girls, let's move on to the next question. Question number 3 here. What do you say to a vendor who, you did that. What do you say to an agent in the current market? What should an agent be doing in the current market with current restrictions? Okay, well, it depends. If you're in Brisbane, man, you're off to the races. Life's good. If you're in WA, man, you can do whatever you want. If you're in New Zealand and Melbourne, you're in the same umbrella, same category. What do you do there? Well, you clean your database. You work out who your top 25 buyers are and you're ready for them. You stay in contact with your pipeline. You get rid of the dead data. You know, the fat data. You know, the guy that's in your database that's dead, that shouldn't be there in the first place because he no longer is alive. You go through all of that, right? You clean your database and you turn it from being a fat database to a fit database. What's the next thing you do? Well, I think the next thing you do is you call all your past open house people, because you know that people that went through your open homes over the last 6 months, particularly the ones 3 months ago, were potentially, not all of them, but some of them were out there checking out the market because they were thinking of coming onto the market. So what do? You work those people. What else do you do? You ring up your realestate.com, Trade Me for those in New Zealand, realestate.co if you're in New Zealand, domain.com if you're in Sydney. You call those leads and you ask them, can I ask you, we had an inquiry off you some time ago. Were you inquiring about a property because you were looking to buy, or were you comparing it to something you own? So you call those people. So all of a sudden, you've got a bit of a plan on what you can be doing at least for the first half of the day. Middle day, have lunch with your family, have a barbecue, connect. You might never have this crisis ever again. Taney Jane says, you improve your fitness. You make sure that fitness is a big part of it, because we clearly know we're going back into the roaring 20s when this lockdown's over, and I've got to tell you, energy is a choice. And as far as I'm concerned, don't waste the fact that you've got a little bit more free time. As you know, if you've been following me, on the 26th of June, when the lockdown started and I knew I couldn't do Bikram yoga, I couldn't do Anytime Fitness or Orange Theory, I made the decision that I would run 7 kilometers every day till the lockdown finished. So I do the Bay Run every morning, right? So I think we're at 65 days. I missed one day. It was pouring down rain. It was last Tuesday. And my intention is that I will continue to run the Bay Run till we end the lockdown. So Gladys, please hurry it up. My legs are getting very, very tired. Let's keep moving on. Keep going through these questions. If you're enjoying this rant, please press the share button. I highly value that. Number 4, what should an agent be doing in the current market? We've covered that. Tom, how do you stay optimistic all the time? How do I stay optimistic all the time? Well, number 1, I don't stay optimistic all the time. I think that I'm around 80-20. I think 80% of the time I'm pretty positive, excited, optimistic, pumped, looking at what's possible, not what's probable, scheming in my head about what's coming next and how I'm going to attack it. But there are times where it's a combination of boredom, the monotony, the lack of physical contact with people that I'm not, the best that I can be. And one of the things I did last week, and one of those days I wasn't feeling great, I got to tell you, what did I do? I drove to RPA Lifehouse. where I spent a lot of my time in the treatment, and I parked on Missenden Road, and I stared across the window up there on the third floor from the street level to the third window from the left, and I looked at the window because I got to tell you, there have been so many times I've sat there in chemo staring out that window, looking at people walking through the street, envious of them, envious of the fact that they're not getting chemo, envious of the fact that they're able to walk out there, envious of the fact that they were healthy. And I parked my car and I stared through that window there, and I just reminded myself I was on the other side of that window. So the truth is that whilst things aren't perfect, I know they can be a lot worse. I've said it before. Focus on what you've got, not what you've lost. Focus on your progress, not on your difficulties. Focus on what's available and not what you've lost. Guys and girls, it's a great strategy. It's called scaling. To compare your problem to someone else that's got a problem that's worse than yours, instantly you get a better perspective. Let's keep moving on to the next question. We're not going to get through all these questions, my friends. Okay. What advice would you give to someone who's starting their career in leasing but is looking to move into being a sales agent? Thanks, love your content, Tom Lloyd. Okay, it's from Di Jones. So Tom, firstly, good news. You got a good start in life. You've got a great name. It's Tom, like my name. By the way, my name's really, in Greek, it's Anastasios. It's not actually Tom. Don't ask me how my parents came up with Tom. So what do I say? What do I say to Tom Lloyd? Number one, be a value-added provider. Show more, do more, give more. Number two, understand that as you're building yourself up in leasing, that's a really great start, because I can tell you, if you understand property management inside out and it sounds like you want to get into sales, it's going to be an asset to you. Number three, get very close to the landlords. Get very close to the landlords. Get very close to the customer. Get very close to the person that pays the money. These people are going to be very important to you in your sales career. The next thing is study and be a sponge on the top salespeople in your office, right? Study and be a sponge to the top salespeople in your office and offer your services for free. If you're in an area that you can do open for inspections, and you will soon, go to the open for inspections, my friend, and provide rental assessments on properties. Get to meet people, get a feel of the sales process. That's what I would do. Let's keep moving on. Geez, I'm cold, I'm freezing, so I'm going to hurry this. My friends. This one here is, good evening, confidential. There have been lots of speculations that property prices are going to drop in the next few years, partly due to the announcement that interest rates may slightly go up. What are your thoughts? And this has come from, actually I can't mention your name, it's confidential. I don't think it's really confidential, but because there's nothing really sensitive there. So I will mention it. Harris, my view is this: you don't buy property based on the market. You buy property based on your life, because the research is very clear. Even in the biggest correction, and the biggest drops have been 18%, right? 18%. That 18% is made up within 2 years. So stop trying to time the market, and you buy a property based on your life and your cash flow, and not based on the market, because you'll never, ever pick the market at the top or at the bottom. Then you've got another question which says, do you believe townhouse pricing will increase over the next few years, seeing as though there has only been a very slight increase in townhouses compared to houses and land? Yes, I do, because I think what actually happens is when houses go up a lot, the gap between houses and townhouses becomes so big that all of a sudden townhouses and units become attractive again. So it's a cycle. So yes, I actually think there is going to be good growth in those. Let's keep moving on. Hey, Tommy, enjoy your glass of wine. Oh, yes. That was very nice of the person who wrote that. David Dwyer, good friend of mine and client. David Dwyer. David Dwyer. Enjoy that glass of wine. With the restrictions allowing one person through the property at one time, how do you suggest we handle a family or couple when they arrive? Make them wait in the car, let them roam, or does a married couple count as one? No, a married couple doesn't count as one. You take one person. What the best agents are doing, David, is the following. They're actually using Calendly, and what they do is they lock people into an appointment using Calendly, the app, and essentially what happens is they're given a time from 1:10 to 1:20 p.m., 10 minutes, and they know that that's their time. Steve says you can do that for 15-minute intervals. Or you actually have them sitting in the car and you text them when the one person has come out and the next person goes in. But always have one person in the house. You don't go in the house at the same time. They go in by themselves. Let's keep moving on. We're already at 33 minutes for this podcast or this live stream, so I am going to be finishing it off any moment now. And this is, what do you do if you feel that your colleagues are neglecting you? Oh, this is a good question. What do you do if you feel that your colleagues are neglecting you at work, including the directors? What can I do with them? Well, firstly, to the person that's written this question, let me tell you, the best way to get someone's approval is to not need it in the first place. So what I would do is I would let go of, wanting this attention from them. You know what? If you're in real estate sales, it's get listings, get sales, put people into your database, create deals. Having to sort of get the attention of everyone in your office is not a big deal. So I would say you've got to let go of that. The second thing is, if you've written this question and your question is that you feel like, hey man, I just don't feel like I'm part of this team. Well, I've got good news for you. List a lot of property, make a lot of sales. Everyone's going to want you. Every competitor's going to want you. So my response to the person that's written this question, let go of them and focus on you. Go out there, prospect hard, do all the right stuff that I always talk about real estate, and don't worry too much about having to feel like you're part of, they like me and that. Now, if you feel demotivated in that environment, that's a different question, right? Because that may say to me, hey, there's a culture issue or what have you. But I would start off with focusing on yourself. Be self-reliant. Make them be devastated if they leave you, if you leave them, right? Next thing. Hi, Tom. There's another question that's just come in. Listen, I'm not going to go through all of these questions. This is the last question today. How can I become a more assertive negotiator? Well, let me tell you. How do you become an assertive negotiator? By not being desperate. You see, when there's a great saying in negotiation, the secret to being a good negotiator is care, but not too much. Why? Because if you come across too desperate and too needy, the power goes from you and it goes to the other party. So how do you actually not be desperate? You can't fake that, because I think if you're desperate, you're desperate. What you do is this. You put yourself in a position where you can say no. And how do you do that? By having a lot of balls in the air. You see, it's very simple. If you've only gone to one listing presentation in 3 months and someone says to you at the listing presentation, do it at 1%, you're desperate because you want to eat. You've got no stock. But if you've been prospecting, if you've had a lot of opportunities, if you've been doing nurture marketing, if you do everything that I talk about, you won't be desperate, because you'll just say to them, hey, listen, it's 2%. That's my fee. I can't help you. And you're not going to be desperate, and you're going to be assertive. Why are you going to be assertive? Because you've got another 3 listing presentations to go to that afternoon. Does that make sense? So the secret of being an assertive negotiator is to have a lot of opportunities. So when you really look at it, what's the secret? The secret to negotiation is to be a fanatical prospector, because it means you've always got stuff in your pipeline. That's what it means. And Shane Beaumont gives it the big tick, because he's a smart agent. He's not writing $2 million in Perth and he's a dummy. Guys and girls, let's keep moving on. One more question. Hi Tom, I'm possibly starting in my first sales associate position. I find out tomorrow or Tuesday. I was curious about what advice would you give new agents in the industry? Also, what do your 3 or 6 months should look like in order to be successful? Well, listen, who wrote this? No name there, anonymous. Let me tell you, go to the real estate gym. I've got a 90-day plan. It tells you what to do each day for the first 90 days. Checklist, right? You just follow that. You execute that. You just become a robot. Anyway, guys and girls, I want to thank you so much. Yes, Michael, as he says, join the real estate gym, which I'm so excited because one of the things I've been working on all year is the real estate gym app, and it is finished. And the beta version has already gone out to 300 agents. So what I wanted to do is I just didn't want to hit everyone at the one time in case there was glitches. So that went out last week, and I'm pleased to let you know not many glitches at all. So guys and girls, I'm going to sign off. I want to thank you so much for the biggest thing that you can do is your attention. And I want to let you all know, my friends, thank you, Shane. Shane says the app's great. I want to let you all know, my friends, remember this, no matter how shit things are, remember, the comeback is always bigger than the setback. Big shout out to Agent Box Campaign Agent, 2 of my big sponsors, of course, Real Hub, great people, Secure Exchange, fantastic people, guides, and of course, before you bid, don't forget before you bid. And I'm letting you know, I've got an incredible new company that deal has been done, my friends. We'll be letting you know very, very soon. This thing is hot. Guys and girls, signing off. Stay well. Remember, you sleep well, you eat well, you move well, you've got the foundation that makes you a strong agent. And a strong agent gets strong results. Signing off.